everyone? Hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you guys for joining us. It is Will. I am here with my friend Mark. I'm pointing the right way.
You are
And we
pointing the
are
right way.
joined today, this evening actually, by a good friend of ours, Mike Horton from Party of Four Crafts, who's actually going to be one of the teachers at the upcoming Next Level Laser Conference 2025 in Grapevine, Texas. He is going to be teaching Inkscape. So
Yes.
you guys might know Mike um, from from the Glowforge groups, from his groups. He has a thriving group that is just a wealth of information, and he's always sharing information in there. And he was at our conference last year at our Ask Me Anything booth. Answering all your questions about Inkscape, and we loved his teaching style. We've done events with him before, and we're honored to have him back for another
Yeah.
year. And this year, he's going to actually teach a class about Inkscape. So if you guys jump on, say hello. And also, if you guys have any questions about Inkscape, feel free to throw them in the comments. We'll be monitoring that. But we're going to just jump into this so we can get rolling with this. But Mike, thank you first off for joining us this evening. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Of course.
And first thing we're going to just start with is why would someone choose to use Inkscape as their design software?
Yeah, absolutely. I give a general answer to this question. I see it a lot in many of the groups. And I would say because you've tried all of the software and this is the one that clicks for you, that's why you should choose it. I think they all do the same thing. They all trace bitmaps. They all draw vectors. You can edit SVGs in them. You can export PNGs. They can all do that. But it seems like different people click with different software. And for me, it was Inkscape. I think for Mark, it was Illustrator. And they both do the same thing. That's fine.
Yeah.
Either one of them is better than the other.
Well, I like the price of Inkscape better.
Absolutely. And sometimes people
I use
think it's a
Inkscape.
trick. Like it can't really be free. It's free, but there's ads, right? No, there's no ads. It's free, but they're going to try to sell me like, if I want to do tracing bitmap, I have to pay for it. No, there's nothing like that. It is completely free and free forever.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And so I would say they all have free trials. Illustrator, Corel, Inkscape is just free. Silhouette Business is another really common one. Try them all. Try the free trials, watch some tutorials, and see which one clicks for you. And if Inkscape is that one, then that's why you should choose it, because it clicked and you're comfortable with it.
I was going to say, I'm still on the free trial of Inkscape.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
Me too.
It probably doesn't need to be said, but I will say it just in case. It works on a Mac and a PC, both. It doesn't matter which one you have. So it doesn't matter.
And that's probably true for all of them. So no matter which you're on, do the free trials for all of them and see how they come out.
Yep. And I'll add, before we go any further, I'll also add, whenever somebody asks me what to use, I first ask them, of course, do you have any experience with anything? Because I think that the home run is getting them creating and editing quickly, right? To lower that length of time it takes to get going. So if they have any experience already, I'll kind of push them in that direction. But I'll also ask them, hey, are you in anybody's communities online? Because I would love you to choose something that somebody you admire, somebody that you are connected with also uses, so you have help and support.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like if you're in Mike's group, I would say, hey, you know what, you might strongly consider Inkscape because you got a guy. In fact, you got more than one. You know, but whereas let's say you don't know anybody that uses Illustrator, for example, that's not a bad thing. But when you're starting, it might be nice to have some support. You know,
right?
So,
and if you already use Photoshop, then maybe you're comfortable with Adobe products, and Illustrator would be a better choice for you.
But I just think support, and especially community support when you're getting started, is really good. And I will tell you, Mike, I haven't messaged you lately, but I've messaged you several times over the last few years about how do you do this in Inkscape or whatever. So you got to have somebody kind of on the line to be able to ask. So I always appreciate it about you.
And for me, the quality of the tutorials for the software makes a big difference too. Like I hate 3D design, but I have 3D printers and I've done CAD. And for me, I landed on SolidWorks because I found really good tutorials for SolidWorks. And again, they all do the same thing, But for me, the SolidWorks tutorials clicked with me and I was able to learn it the best. So the quality of the tutorials that you find online, which tutorials click with you, helps as well.
Yep, absolutely. Will, do you
And I
want to get started in some of the questions, or do you want to hit on anything about the conference before we jump into these? Will,
Yeah,
go for it.
I think we're excited. Like we said, we've talked about having Mike there to teach Inkscape, but we're trying to cover all the design programs, and you're going to meet all the teachers at the next conference for that. So if you use Inkscape, you use Illustrator, Silhouette Business, Corel Draw, Lightburn. We're trying to cover as much as possible for all of you, and it's a great opportunity if you haven't settled on one to maybe go into a class like for Inkscape and say, hey, let me see what's being used. Oh, that works for me, and the price is right. For me, I use Inkscape, and I remember when we were in SoCal at Mike's event at your school,
Yeah.
and you did your tips there. That was when I first got to experience your teaching style, and I was like, that was amazing. Those were things that I didn't know, but also things that I knew how to get to the end point, but you were able to make it digestible to get me from A to B faster. Like, oh, I did not know that. So even if you're someone who uses Inkscape daily, you only know what you know. And by going to some of these classes, you're going to find some tips and tricks that are going to help you get to certain places faster, which will increase your workflow. So I think that's another thing to consider too, that yes, we all have a certain skill set, but we're always learning. I know Mark says that all the time in Illustrator. Victor teaches him something every single time we talk.
Yes.
So,
well, and I also appreciate that Michael's teaching from the aspect of being a laser owner, because there are lots of features in Illustrator, there are lots of features in Inkscape that you may never use when it comes to a laser,
Right.
or rarely, right? You're probably gonna cycle around the same half dozen, 6, 8, 10 features over and over and over and over and over. So I know you've got a couple things that you want to show us. And again, anybody who's watching, if you have a question about Inkscape, like if there's something that's always stumped you, let's see if we can stump Mike, and let's see if we can do that.
I wanted to bounce off something you just said there. Like,
Yeah.
I see a lot of people when they ask, like, where should I find tutorials for Inkscape? A
Yes.
lot of people say Logos by Nick. And Logos by Nick is great, but he's not a laser person.
That's
so
true.
He shows you like color palettes and gradients and things that laser people would never use.
That's
like
true.
you said, there's 7 to 10 like things that we use a lot when designing for lasers. And then there's a lot more. So finding somebody who designs for lasers, like if you're designing logos, you can layer colors on top of layers and you don't have to worry about it. But you can't do that with a laser. You have to cut one color out of the other color and fill it in. So it's different. You want to find somebody who teaches that software, but for lasers.
That's great. That is really true. That's great. So do you have a couple things? We'll take some questions as they have them, and I've got a few too, but I'll let you start with a couple things we've got kind of preloaded. Will, you want to kind of kick off the first one there?
Yeah. So we're going to talk. I'm going to throw up your screen here, Mike. You're going to talk about one of the ones that we use quite a bit, which is Union, correct? Is that what you have on your screen?
Let's do Trace Bitmap first.
Trace Bitmap first?
Yeah,
okay.
have that one
I'm going to throw this on. All right, I'm going to throw it on the stage. Let's make sure we got it on there. Whew, you're there.
If you're in any of the groups, you probably see all the time people asking, can someone make this? Is there an app I can use or a website I can use to make this cuttable? And what they're asking is, can you convert this bitmap into a vector for me? And so let's start with what's a bitmap and what's a vector. So on the screen, this is my school's logo, and this is a bitmap. And you can tell it's a bitmap because if I zoom way into it, and I'm going to be a little clumsy today because I'm on a desktop and I usually use a laptop. So I'm learning like the wheel on the mouse and all that stuff. I usually am stretching and pinching. This is a bitmap. And when you zoom in on it, it looks absolutely terrible. This line is terrible. It's all pixelated and the letters don't look good. And then a vector, when you zoom in on a vector, it looks perfect. So this is a vector right here. Our mascot is obviously the mammoth. Nope, that's a bitmap. I lied to you. This is a vector right here. And when I zoom in on this, no, that's also a bitmap. So I don't have any vectors on my screen right now, but when you zoom in on them, they are perfect straight lines created like mathematically, and you could zoom 10 billion times and they would still be a smooth, crisp line. And that's what you need. If a laser tried to cut this bitmap over here, like it'd be going because it's so pixelated. And then vector is mathematical equations for lines with mathematical equations for fills. So you could shrink that down teeny tiny and mathematics doesn't change. It'll still be perfectly smooth, or blow it up the size like to print it on the top of a stadium and it would still look crisp because it's just a mathematical equation. And the laser follows that mathematical equation for the line when it's cutting things out that are vector.
I know it's probably a generational thing, but I use it all the time. When I explain the difference between a bitmap and a vector, I say a bitmap is Minecraft. And I have yet to have somebody not know what I'm talking about. They go, absolutely. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yes.
Pixelation. So bitmaps are usually edited in Photoshop or GIMP or something like that. And vectors are Inkscape and Illustrator and things like that. So the challenge is that it's impossible to just convert a crappy bitmap image into a good vector. Like it takes time and skill and effort and training to make vectors. So this is a pretty good bitmap. That's a decent quality bitmap. I see much worse than that. I see screenshots of photos of like textured business cards and somebody saying, can somebody convert this to vector for me? No, you can't. No. So I showed you, this is Inkscape trying to trace this bitmap, and look at how bad that looks. Like I could not give that to a customer. Here's Illustrator, image trace.
Could you zoom in just a little bit for us? Could you zoom in on some of those so we can see them? Because
yep.
I think we'll probably have people watching on phones. It'll be really small.
Yeah. So this text here, like you can't use that. And then this text at Illustrator, and there are websites that people use. So this was Vector Magic Vectorizer, and same thing, like that's unusable because the bitmap was not great quality. So if you are going to trace a bitmap, you need something like this that's black and white and with crisp edges and not grayscale. This is so easy to trace. All I would do is go path, trace bitmap, and then right over here, like a black and white image like this, I just leave the settings right where they are and click apply, and there it is. It's a vector now, and it looks good. You can see the nodes, and I could stretch these nodes out now if I wanted to. I could, if I wanted to, like cut a circle out of it to hang it on a string. I could go like this and do path exclusion, and I cut a circle out of the middle of it. I can't do that with this bitmap. But to trace bitmaps, they have to be good bitmaps. You would have to recreate this whole thing. You have to figure out what fonts these are. And this is at least a 15-year-old logo. So I tell people the best way to convert a bitmap to a vector is to find the original artist and ask them for the vector version, because this was probably vector when it was created. And then when they sent it to us, they sent us a PNG file, but they still have the vector version of it. That's always the easiest way, is to contact the original artist and ask them for the vector version of it.
In fact, I have that conversation at least once a week with someone like in DMs and things, where they'll say, hey, this customer sent me this Western Center Academy bitmap here. I want to put it on a Tumblr and it looks terrible. And I said, wait, is that a school? And they go, yeah. I say, I promise they have a vector. They have one. No, they said they didn't. No, you're just talking to the wrong person. They don't know what a vector is. But do they have a sign outside? Do they have shirts? Do they have a bus? Do they have somebody has a vector? So, and I can't tell you how many times I've said, okay, no problem, and then I've rebuilt the vector for them, And then a few hours later, they say, "Oh, they sent me the vector."
Oh no!
You know, because I know they have it, right?
Yeah.
So we just need to educate our customers. And then if it's a small business, sometimes they don't have a vector. It depends on
Possible.
who it is. But if it's an established company, especially like a school that's been around for decades, they definitely have one.
And this is a time-saving tip. Like I'm zooming in and zooming out using these buttons over here. But if I highlight something and just hit the number 3 on my keyboard, it zooms in for that thing to fill the entire screen. If I hit 5,
Yeah,
it zooms in so the page fills the whole screen.
Number 3.
Write that down. That's
Number
fantastic.
5.
So just the number 3 on the keyboard?
I just hit the number 3 and it goes there. So 3 zooms to the selection, 5 zooms to the page.
Oh.
But my selection is off the page, so that doesn't help me. That saves a lot of time. But then now that this is vector, I can zoom in and like look at how crisp that is. I'm at 2,000, 5,000, 6,000%, and that line is still perfectly smooth, and a laser could cut that. And then I hit 3 again, and it zooms right back out.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really great.
So let's say I keep trying to do Inkscape, but on the StreamYard screen, I have to look over here to do that. Let's say we were going to recreate this, like probably the most, you can see I already started it up here. One of the most commonly used tools is the pen tool, or the Bezier tool, it's called in some. And to recreate the shield is so easy. I just click here and here and here and here and here. And then I call it the node editing arrow. They call it the node tool. I use that arrow and I just grab it and move each one of these curves. And in just a few seconds, I have the shield created.
That's great.
And now if I found out what this font was, I could split this. I wouldn't try to draw that mammoth, but I could find, a copyright-free mammoth that I could put in there. And that's what it would take, like retyping this on a curve and drawing this ribbon. So it is difficult to convert a bitmap to a vector if the bitmap is not black and white and high quality.
Hey, Will, you want to grab that question from Kurt for Mike?
Let me throw this off. I'm going to just take off the screen first, just so we can see the question as well a little quickly. Let's see. Here we go. Kurt asks, if you ask a customer for their vector instead of a bitmap, what can you tell them so they know what to look for? So how would a customer who doesn't know what a vector versus a bitmap is, how could they tell that they're getting the right thing from their people?
That's a good question. I think I would ask them, most people save their vectors as SVG files. So a file that ends with SVG. And kind of like, how you work on a video and you have like your video working file, and then when you export it, you have the MP4 file. Well, I think with Adobe Illustrator, there's the AI file, and that's the working file. And then when you export it, you export the SVG. So the AI file would work as well.
Yeah, I'll add to that. What I've experienced is, as Mike, you know this too, an SVG. I don't know if this is the proper term. This is what I've picked up, as I call it a container file. I don't know if that's actually the proper term or not, but SVG, PDFs, AIs, and I even think DXFs, correct me if I'm wrong, are they also containers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can contain whatever you put in them, meaning, because people will always correct me and say, "Oh, Mark, you don't know what you're talking about. It's this scalable vector graphic SVG." And it's like, okay, I didn't start yesterday. You can put a bitmap in Inkscape and save it as an SVG, and that does not make it a vector. So to Kurt's question, you can ask them for an SVG, or you can get them a list of file extensions like AI, SVG, PDF, maybe even DXF. And your odds of getting a vector are much higher asking for those than it would be like taking a JPEG or a PNG. But that doesn't guarantee it, but at least it gives you a better shot at it.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
PNG guarantees that it's not.
In fact, I've gotten files that say the title is school logo vector.png. Like, okay, that's not a thing.
And I see
So
that conversation you mentioned all the time.
all the
Somebody
time.
saying, I saved it as an SVG, but Glowforge still will only let me engrave. Well, yes,
Yeah.
a bitmap in an SVG container is still a bitmap.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I see a lot of people using Canva, which I'm not taking cheap shot at all. That can save you a ton of time making some graphics for the screen. But as of at least now, it doesn't do a great job with vectors. It can technically make some, but they're usually a mess, and I'm usually cleaning them up a lot. So
That's another good point to bring up is when people make things in something like Canva, even if it's black and white and crisp, when you convert it, it traces both the inside and the outside edge of that line.
yeah,
And then you go through and delete half of the trace that it just did because you only want a single line.
yeah,
And I have never seen, like, all of the software has center line trace. I've never seen one that actually works. Like, instead of tracing the inside and the outside of the line, it's supposed to trace right down the middle of the line. But then they get to a V and it doesn't know where to connect that. And like, what does it do with a T? It doesn't know, do you want it like this and like this?
yeah,
So I've
yeah.
never seen a good centerline trace. And you're going to have issues if you create something in a non-vector program like Canva. Even if it's black and white and thin lines, when you
Yep.
trace it, you're still going to have some work to do to get it ready to cut.
Well, and it doesn't. I had people say, "Oh, the line is just 1 pixel thick." It doesn't matter. It has two sides. It has an outside and an inside, or a left and a right. It doesn't matter how thick it is. But yes, that is absolutely true. And again, a lot of these tools, like Procreate, for example, great, powerful art creating tool, fantastic. It's just not made to do vectors, and that's not necessarily a problem. But it's not made for that. Yeah, Victor said these are conversations I'm sure we all have weekly.
Yeah.
I know I do. I bet
yeah.
Mike does too.
Yep.
All the time.
And I haven't played with a lot of the online converters and tracers, but I'm sure they do the same thing. I'm sure they also trace the inside and the outside of the lines as well.
Well, I think Victor can probably give us some examples too. But I know I've had pieces of art that, or files that I've created as vectors that are not as vectors, as bitmaps. That if you did a center line trace, besides all the stuff you mentioned just a minute ago, it also sometimes if I have to delete the inside and the outside, like if I have to delete the inside layer or the outside layer, it doesn't leave the art the way I need it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no way to make it work right. So that's probably too much on that topic, but I just say it's not as simple as people like to make it sometimes.
No,
it really
absolutely not. Could I show you? I have a tip that I really
Please.
think people would like.
I mean, I could just go home with a 3 and 5 numbers and I'm already, that's fantastic.
Game over.
There's so many websites now that don't save images as JPEGs, like Etsy. They're these weird file types that I can't even name them, WFIF and things like that we can't really use. And so I was using those conversion websites to convert them from AVIF to JPG. And then I downloaded this Chrome extension, and so now I can right click on something and go to save image as type and save as JPEG, and it saves it as JPEG, and I don't have to download it, upload it to a conversion website and convert it. So it's a Chrome extension called save image as type.
Okay. You've already given more value in this than I've ever given in any of mine. This is fantastic. So save image as type.
Yep. And then you just right click on an image, and there's the regular save image as, and that would come up as, so that one happens to be a JPEG. But if it wasn't, I go to save image as type and I have JPEG, PNG. Oh yeah, WebP is one that a lot of the websites are using. And you can't open that in Photoshop or Inkscape. And so I just right click, save as JPEG, and they all come out as JPEGs.
That's amazing. Wow. That's fantastic. Okay. I'm definitely doing that. And then I'm not going to tell anybody. They'll just think I'm brilliant.
and fast.
That's right.
Like,
That's
wow,
right.
you're quick at that.
Yeah.
So a couple more things with bitmaps and vectors. Common problems that I see. Sometimes people want to take a bitmap and make it into a shape. Like they want
Yes.
to cut this mammoth to fit in a circle, but then they load it into the Glowforge app or into Xtool XCS, and the rest of the mammoth comes back again.
Yes.
Because when you do this, when I put a circle over this mammoth, and let's say I want to clip it there, so I shift click both of these, and then I go object, clip, set clip, and there it is. It's a circle, but it just put a mask over it. The circle's still there. The mammoth is still there. It just put a circular mask over that mammoth, and then Glowforge can't read masks. So when you put it in the Glowforge, it sees the circle and the entire mammoth again. And then people ask in the groups, like, I clipped this. Why is it still there when I load it into the Glowforge group? So the secret is you have to convert it back to a bitmap. So if I click on it and I go edit, make a bitmap copy, now I have a bitmap copy of it that when I load it into Glowforge, the rest of the mammoth won't be there.
Now, I have a couple questions about that. That's fantastic. First of all, that's really great. Can you? I don't know what it's called in Inkscape. I know what it is in Illustrator. In Illustrator, I can do like a Pathfinder minus front minus back, and I can cut that circle. I'm sorry, I can cut the circle out of the mammoth out of the circle. I always get it backwards to which one's which. Can you not also do that as an option?
If they're both vector, you can, but we can't.
I'm sorry.
We can't do a vector and a bitmap.
Yep. I'm sorry. Right. Correct. That's great. I'll ask you a question. Just using the mammoth that you put the hanger hole in, that you put the circle in. We'll use that as an example. Two questions about that one. Hey, can you press number 3? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Look at that. Is amazing. I just want to see it. That's so good. This is a weird example, but you have it here, so I'll use it. If I wanted to, that front leg that's lifted up, that's a separate piece. If I wanted to move that piece separately, how would I go about doing that?
Good question. So I would go path. I'm looking at the wrong screen again.
Yeah.
Path, break apart, and then it breaks these all up. So that circle is now separate. I have to click off of it first. I have to click over here to click off of it.
Yeah.
And now this leg is separate, and I can move it. And the circle, it blended in, but now the circle is separated too. So a lot of people try to ungroup, but when it's one solid vector and that circle was cut out of the vector, they're not grouped, like it's physically cut out of the vector. Instead of ungrouping, you have to break apart to get vector pieces apart. Now I can shift click these two and group them together. But like if I click on one of them, it's still the nodes only light up on that one. So those are not unions together, which is our next topic. Those were just grouped together, and I can still select them individually. But if I click on one and the whole thing lights up with nodes, then I have to use path break apart to separate them.
Oh,
but sometimes using path break apart can also be a pain, because if I do that with words, it breaks the inside of each one of these letters that has insides apart, when really all I wanted to do was separate the letters from the ribbon, but then it breaks apart the insides of the letters too. And then that's not difficult to fix, but it's an extra step that you have to take. So if I were to path break apart this.
Yep.
Oh no, that was the only one that wasn't vector. I screenshotted that one.
Oh, yeah.
So this one would work the best. If I path break apart this, then all the letters, they look good here, but you can see that the centers of the E's are missing. They're still there, and all I have to do is highlight them and go path exclusion, and then it's gone again. But that's an extra step that I have to do each time after I break apart, is do exclusion to get the center of all my letters back again.
So I got a question that Victor has there, and then I have one for follow-up as well. Victor asks, because he's coming from Illustrator, so I bet there's a version of this here. in Illustrator, you can double click on something and it will go into what I believe is, Victor, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's referred to as isolation mode. I think, tell me if that's right, where you're just working inside that group or inside that compound path sometimes.
It's a good question, and we're going to test it right now because I don't know the answer to that question. But let's see. Like if I double click the circle, it's going to put another node right there. If I double click this,
but it might just have a different way to get there. Like I'm not sure.
Yeah. So when I double click with this arrow, it just opens up the other arrow.
Okay.
And when I double click with this arrow, in the center, it does nothing. On the edge, it adds another node. So I don't think we can do that in Inkscape.
Yeah, you never know though too. It might just be called, like it took me quite a while to find out that what break apart was because I wasn't familiar with those terms, right?
Right.
So I bet it can.
One thing I noticed was different when I traced in Inkscape than in Illustrator. In Illustrator, it came out separate pieces. Where in Inkscape, I've broken it apart now, but that came out just one solid piece. And in Illustrator, it came out separate pieces. So that was one little difference. I don't know if that's a good difference or a bad difference, but I noticed that when I did it today.
So one other thing I thought about for Inkscape too was, let me think, it was about those, the logo you had up there to the right. Linda's asking, what was the Google extension for photos? I know what it was, Bill.
Save image as type.
Save image as type.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's great. All right, I'll let you continue because I know you got some other things, but I know you were going to talk about Union next.
Yes, so Union is so common. It's one of the most common things, and I also see a lot of issues with it. My very first Inkscape tutorial I ever made was called "Why Won't My Text Union?" because it's such a common problem. You try to union text to something else, and that something else just disappears and things like that. So I have here a few things that I want to demonstrate. So sometimes you want to union like a word to a line because you want to cut it out as one piece where it could be hung as a sign or something like that. And if you just highlight the word and the line and do union like that, most of that line disappeared and it didn't really union to it. It's not even really touching it anymore. So there's some things that you have to do before you union. So one thing, this is still editable text. So I can still edit the text. So I want to convert it to paths first before I do anything else. Okay. And there's two ways to do that, whether it's a not script text. There's probably a word for a non-script text, but I'll just call it not script, or a script text. With the non-script text, I just go path, object to path, and now there's nodes there, and it's now path. And you'll see it different when I now try to union it to that line. But it still didn't work properly because that line it's just a vector line like that you want to cut across, and it has zero width. So you need something with width to union to. And so I want to convert this. I could go path, stroke to path, and now you can see this has nodes and it has width, and I could change it like that. Let me go on a tangent real quick. I'm on my work computer right now, and so I don't have it set up like I usually do. I hate snapping. Like it snaps when I can't get that close to where I want it without it snapping. And so this here is the snapping button up here in the right corner, and you can turn that on and off so it doesn't do that. And there, it's not snapping now, and I can move that as close as I want to. I don't know what was wrong there. I had it turned off, but it was still snapping. So I turned it on and off again, and it stopped doing it. But I'm going to undo anyhow to get it back to normal.
I just figured if you click the 5 number, that should fix it, right? I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
I'm going to push 5 from now on. I don't even care what the problem is, just 5.
So now that I've converted them both to paths, when I go path union, then it does what I want. Now it union them, it put the letters on the line, and the laser would cut all the way around all of those things.
I had something to add to when you were talking about, well, I know you're getting into union, but when we were talking about breaking apart and then getting into union, a big thing we hear in the community is the dot on the I.
Yes.
Yeah.
How
Yes.
do I get that to connect? So I guess if you want to demonstrate that with union
Sure.
and break apart there, that might be something very valuable on how a lot of people, oh, the Y or the I or the, the other pieces that might fall off. How do I make it one piece?
So
Yes.
one thing I do, like I think I've talked to you guys before about, like, I have this condition where I can't picture things in my head. I have no mind's eye. So it makes it really difficult for me to remember things that aren't logical. So sometimes I do things in ways that aren't the best way, but they're logical to me so I can remember it, because I don't have to picture in a menu where this thing is that I have to select to do it. So I wouldn't use break apart for that. I would highlight that, cut it, and then click off of it, and then paste it. And then there it is. I could just drag it wherever I want to and connect it. And then I would union those together. And now I can make it bigger if I want to.
Yeah.
However I want to connect that, I could do that.
Hey, before you connect that, would you zoom like pretty far in so I can just illustrate something?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I was just trying to get you to use the 5 again. Yeah, no. This is an example. I have 2 things to point out here. One is sometimes I get people like this happens a lot around Christmas when they're doing ornaments for whatever, because ornaments a lot of times you're welding or unioning text to shapes, right? And a couple things happen. Sometimes they think that they're touching, but they actually aren't, but they are really close. And sometimes it's the thickness of the stroke that makes them not realize that it's actually not touching. And so I wanted, maybe if you could show us real quick, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called. I know in Illustrator it's outline view, but it's, what's it called? I can't
Same
remember.
thing, view, display mode, outline.
And so I do 95% of my work in this view because a laser ignores your stroke completely. And so I don't want to see the stroke because it messes with me. And so that dot of that I looked like maybe it was touching, perhaps, but it wasn't because the stroke was too thick, or maybe it was close. But you'll see what I mean when you go back to that again.
Right.
Okay,
so
it wasn't
if I did
that
like this, that looks like it's touching. But once I go back into outline mode, that's not touching.
Correct. And they've just hit union. And then they go group. And like, well, that's not the same thing.
Nope.
But I just wanted people to see that tool or that view can help a lot.
Absolutely.
And to ignore the stroke.
Yes, I agree. And I turn that off and on, back and forth as well. And then now all I would do is shift click to get both of them, and then path union, and there it is. So now you can see the laser is going to go around. Before, the laser would have cut this out, and then it would have cut this out, and it would have cut this part of the circle out of the eye, and they would have been 2 separate pieces. And so for people who are new to vector design, that's why we union, is we want the laser to go around and then around here and not cut the circle out of the eye, but we want to cut the circle and the eye out together. And to do that, you have to union. And that's where watching non-laser people teach Inkscape, like if you were just making a poster, that would be fine. You could overlap them and nothing would be wrong with that. But then you try to cut it on a laser and it won't work. So then I go path union, and now the laser is going to go right one continuous path right around the eye and the dot.
I love it. That's great. I want to also mention that from other programs, you might be used to a word like weld, which just helping people kind of connect the verbiage, because it's the same as union, weld, right?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what is it called in Illustrator? Pathfinder?
It's called oh my gosh, I use it every day. It's what is it, Victor? I forgot. Is it union? I think also. I can't remember. It's so funny. I click it all day, every day, and I can't remember. So that's great.
To show my next point, I can't be in outline mode because I want to show you like the difference that the type of line makes when you're welding things. So if I were to weld this and have it still, or now I'm calling it weld. If I were to union this in Inkscape and keep the inside, like I just drew these circles, and you could see when there's dot, dot, circle, it's still an editable circle, but it's not a path yet. So if I just union these, it gets rid of the center, and that's not what I want. I want the center. So then I could go and select both of these and say path, object to path, and now there's 4 nodes. Now these are paths, and if I union them, oh man, the center's gone again. So what I need to do is select them both and go path, stroke to path. I want to convert this so the inside and the outside, it's not a line with thickness. I want it to be a filled in shape. And to do that, you have to convert the stroke to a path. So instead of object to path, I use stroke to path. And now there's nodes on the inside and the outside of the line. And when I union them, it keeps the inside. And this is one path now. If I turn off the fill and turn on an outline, so that's what it would look like when you cut it.
That's great. Are there any times you can think of when you're working for a laser? We all kind of work for a laser, don't we?
True.
That you would want to leave a stroke where it's not converted to a path. I can't think of one.
I think if I was just cutting a circle, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter.
You're right. Yep.
Either way, it would be fine.
Right. But if you're depending on it for the look, then that will not work.
Right. I see that a lot in the groups too. They say this line was really thin and I made the thickness of the stroke thicker and it didn't get any thicker when I engraved it.
Right.
Because it's just a line. And all you can really do is score that line. And besides defocusing, you can't really change the thickness of a stroke.
Right. Very good. That's awesome.
That kind of shows, like, I wanted to kind of make the point that all of these tools here, they call them Boolean tools, but you don't need to know that. They're complicated and people struggle with them all the time. They say, I'm unioning these and it's not doing what I wanted, or I did difference, but a piece of it is disappearing. They're difficult. And I've been doing this for years and I still do difference and go, nope, that's not what I wanted. Exclusion. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Division. That was it.
Control Z.
I do exactly the same thing. Yes.
So don't get frustrated when you're learning any vector software and these Booleans are confusing. They're confusing for everyone, no matter how much experience we have.
Can you can I throw a curveball for you and have you teach me something? Because I struggle with this in Inkscape and I'd love to be good at it. Offsets, and I don't really understand what dynamic offset is. So kind of what those are.
Okay, I'm going to show you something.
I know what an offset is, but I struggle with the offset in general.
I'm going to show you something you'll never use dynamic offset again. And the alternative is way better, way easier, and far more accurate with far fewer errors. So let me first, I forgot to get to the script font, but I can use the script font as the example. When the script font overlaps like this, if you just converted this to paths, it would cut a chunk of each letter out of the next letter. So you cannot just do object to path with a script font. You can't do stroke to path. You have to union them. And so there it is, union, and now they're all connected properly. The newer versions of Inkscape, you used to have to convert it to path, break it apart, move the pieces together, and then union it. Now you just click on the text and go path union, and it does all that stuff for you. But if you're cutting this out, like these pieces, I'm going to hit the number 3.
Sweet.
These pieces here, once they cut out, they would be too thin and this would break apart. So maybe you want to make it thicker with an offset. So instead of using dynamic offset or linked offset, which what that would look like is this diamond shows up and you grab it by hand and move it. But sometimes like these huge arcs will shoot out of it. And if I'm trying to adjust for kerf and I need to move this 0.08 millimeters, I can't do that with the dynamic offset. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. Get it back to the path. So there are things called path effects. And if I go to path and then path effects, I drop this menu down, there's all these cool things that you can do. You can mirror image something. You can flip things. You can make arrays out of things if you're doing a test grid. So one of them is called offset. And you get to type in a number exactly how much you want it offset. So the kerf on my lasers is 0.08. So I just type in 0.08. And you saw it move a little bit.
Yeah.
I could do a bigger offset so you can see it better. So I'll do an offset of 1. And then there it is. It just offset at 1. No dragging. You could do it with numbers. It doesn't make those spikes. You're not dragging it by hand and guessing where it looks good. You just type a number in the offset, and there it is.
So this is path effects?
Path effects. So under path effects is a path effect called offset.
Okay.
And then you'll never use dynamic offset or linked. I don't even know what linked offset does, but you'll never use dynamic offset again.
I love that. I'm used to something similar to that in Illustrator. And I want to make this point very strongly. I wrongly assumed that it didn't have something similar. It turns out it does. So this is kind of one of the reasons why a class like this is really valuable, to discover something you just didn't know was there.
Yeah.
So this is really great.
So there's one last step to this. You can see it still has the old path and it's showing a preview of the new path. To like lock this in, you have to go path, object to path. And now it's locked in, and I can cut this out on a laser, and this is thicker and it wouldn't fall apart.
That's really cool.
That is one of the actions that I've showed you today. Union, trace bitmap, and offset are the 3 most common things that I use every day in Inkscape. I'm glad you asked that question.
Man, that's so good. Yeah, Victor said Michael is a wealth of knowledge. I totally agree. I mean, I'm going to be clicking 5 and 3. I'm going to be doing path effects. Like, it's great.
And play around with
effects. I'm going to try to beat you to the questions. I'm going to try to beat you to the questions in your group now. I'm just going to start answering path effects 5, like as all my answers now. This is great.
There's another great path effect. If we have time, I can show you.
Go for it. Yeah.
So I was planning on showing how to like draw the shield. I showed it a little bit, but you could never get it perfectly symmetrical. Like this is one I've already done this process too, but like it'll be like that. And it's a little off on this side. And if I like this side better, so as long as I make sure that these are aligned in the alignment tool, I can break this in half, duplicate half of it, flip it, and reconnect it. But there's also a path effect called mirror symmetry, where I take half of it and it will flip it and connect it for me. This is the only time I ever turn snapping on. So to break it apart, there's these 4 up here, that there's one that breaks the path at selected nodes, one that joins them, one that connects them with a new segment. So if I break them, then this is now 2 separate halves. And so I usually don't use the path effect for this, something this simple. I would Control D to duplicate it, hit H to flip it horizontal, and then I have snap on, and then I drag it until it snaps. I guess the blue light on snap means it's not on. This isn't the version of Inkscape that I use every day. No, that's still not on. I just have to keep turning it off and back on, I guess.
You're just rebooting, or need some coffee.
Yeah. And then once I have them, then I shift click both of them, and I want to connect these nodes. So I highlight them both and go back up here, and I connect those nodes. Do the same with these, connect those nodes. And now it's a perfectly symmetrical shield. Around Valentine's Day, I draw a lot of hearts, and I can never get the lobes of the heart symmetrical. So I always do this. I draw the heart, I pick the side I like better, delete the other side, flip it, and join it back together again. And trying to, like, sometimes I try to eyeball it. I go, oh, I think this is the same length as that one, and this one is dropping. But it's so much easier just to flip half of it and join it back together.
I'll give you an example of how that has happened to me. Is let's use a heart, for example. If it's not exactly symmetrical, sometimes it doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Victor. It does drive me crazy too. Yes, I know. But if I'm cutting something out on the laser and I'm going to put it back into a space, it's super easy for me to get it flipped over accidentally, and it doesn't fit because it's not symmetrical, right? So that's just one example of why symmetry in a lot of cases does matter. Not every case, but a lot of cases it does. Man, that's great. Oh, I had one more question for you. I'm trying to remember what it was now. Nope, it'll come to me. It'll come to me as soon as someone else has a question.
Of course.
Yeah.
As soon as we check out and we're like, hey, everyone, thank you guys so much for joining. We will talk to you later. Hey, Mike, have a great evening. Hey, Mike, how do
Yes.
I think so. The topics that we had, I think we've reached them all. So those one is Inkscape easy to learn? Absolutely not. None of the vector design is not easy. It took me years to learn. It takes everybody years to learn. Inkscape is not easy. Illustrator is not easy. CorelDRAW is not easy. Lightburn is not easy. Don't think you're going to learn it overnight. It's going to take time. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to watch YouTube videos, do what they did. It's not going to work the same way for you. It takes time to learn vector software, any vector software.
But I want to reiterate what you said in the beginning. Two things you said is that different programs will just work with different people. So you may find that one just really works for you. So that's great. But also, if you learn from someone who's teaching for a laser, that's going to save you a bunch of time. Because Mike just gave us several tips here, all of which I would use every single day with the laser things that I'm doing. So that's really great. I do have one that this isn't Inkscape specific, but one that I learned last year from Tyler, who works in my office, worked in my office. I miss you, Tyler, if you're watching. But he could not believe that I did not know this. And it's paste in place.
Oh,
Is it called paste in place here, or is it called something else?
It is called paste in place.
And
so I could have done that when I separated the dot from the eye, and I cut it, and then I could have pasted it back in place. So if I break this apart,
just go ahead and tell everybody what that means and why it'd be useful, because I use it every single day now.
Yeah. So if I for some reason needed this O separate, like the center of the O, like I wanted this O filled in because that's how their logo looked, I could separate it from the rest of that. So here's another one. If I click one node and then hit Control A, it'll click all those nodes, or I could have just dragged and highlighted over it. But sometimes that Control A really comes in handy. So I can cut that. And then if I just hit Control V, it pastes it wherever my mouse cursor is. It pasted it. I'm pointing at the screen thinking you guys can see where I'm pointing. But instead, I can do edit, paste in place, and it'll put it right back where it came from. And there it is. It put it right back there. That helps quite a bit when I'm trying to separate something from everything else, but I want it to go back where it was. I use paste in place.
And something else I discovered related to that, that I just discovered, honestly, a week ago, that I thought was really helpful for me. And let me see if I can put it together here for a second. Let's say that you copied the center of that O to your clipboard, right? Just like you did earlier. And then you did several things that were wrong. Like I don't know, you dragged this over here and deleted that. And then you wanted to undo. I logically thought that if I undo past when I put it on my clipboard, it would undo the clipboard, but it doesn't. I thought it would just go back with every action that I had done and undo it. It remains on my clipboard. And so when I paste in place, it goes right back where I was, regardless of how many undos I did. And if that doesn't resonate with anybody right now, it's okay. But there'll be a day when you do something and go, wait a minute, that's going to help me. And I've used that several times today because I was making a particular project that I showed Will before we got on here.
I do that sometimes when I mess up. I'll get this part exactly how I want it, and then I'll start working on this part, and I realize something on this part isn't how I wanted it. So I will cut this and then undo to get this part back how I wanted it, and then paste in place to get this halfway done back again.
Yes.
And Control Z is like amazing, and then Control Shift Z is redo.
Yes. Now I see Victor said copy stays until you copy something else. That's true. I know in Illustrator that you can tell it how many undos you're allowed to use because it uses up memory, of course, the more that you do. And I have hit the maximum several times. And let's just say that's a lot.
Can I show you another tip? It's completely unrelated to Vector, but I think it'll save people time. Like if you hit Control V, it pastes whatever you just copied. If you hit Windows V on a Windows computer, your whole clipboard comes up and the last 500 things that you copied come up, and all I do is click on one and it pastes that into whatever it is that I'm working on.
And that's part of Windows?
It's part of Windows, yes. No special plugins or anything. That's just part of Windows. So Windows V, and then earlier today I copied that and it just pasted it in there.
That's awesome. Okay, wow. Okay, so 3 and 5, Windows V, and path effects. I mean,
and save images type.
Yeah, and I'm being silly on purpose, but those are huge. Those are huge time savers. Yeah, so fantastic. What a great.
So it's time for Mark to say, okay, I'm good with it.
If I could, something related to what you just said, Mark, and a little bit of shameless self-promotion. So I am working on a whole series of Inkscape videos specifically for laser creators, but they're project-based. Instead of here's a tool, let me show you how to use it, it's here's a project, let me show you how to do it. And some of these tools that we use often are going to come up in every project, and you're going to see it over and over again, as you should, because it's a very common thing. So I'm working on that. I don't know when it'll be released, but since we've been talking about like take vector lessons from people who own lasers, I've started creating that. And project-based learning is really big in education. So I thought it was important to do like a project-based learning Inkscape for laser people videos.
That's so good. And I don't, Michael, I don't know if we've talked about it, but that's, I think, what we're going to try to do with all the programs, the classes at the conference is teach through a thing, whether it be an ornament or something like that, because it's both something that they'll likely make, but also it's going to touch on, welding unioning. And as long as they get 3 and 5 in there, we're good. So Will, go ahead and tell them where they can find Mike.
Yeah, so like if you guys you love Mike's teaching style, you love his helpful attitude and always contributing to the community, join his Facebook group. It's the friendliest Glowforge group, and you'll probably be able to keep up on when these tutorials and everything are coming out as well. It's a great group, a lot of information on there, and that's probably the easiest way to keep track of Michael's newest potential courses and tutorials, but also if you ever need help with anything else, that group is very helpful. Hence
they're even friendly. They're friendly.
They're the friendliest. So yeah, join his group, take a look at it. It's an amazing community that he's built there. One of the largest, maybe quite possibly the largest Glowforge group out there.
Largest
in the community, largest. So that doesn't happen.
You're going to change it to largest Glowforge group?
The friendliest, largest.
We are thinking about changing it to friendliest laser group. Like almost every Glowforge owner has another laser now. And we started making break-off groups. There's the friendliest X tool group. And we're thinking about sometime in the next few months, making it the friendliest laser group.
Honestly, I think that'd be great, because I was going to mention your other groups, but I think that would really be great, because I will say this as someone who's had a Glowforge since they came out, but I don't use one anymore, but I love your group. And I don't want people to think by the title that they can't get anything out of it, because that's absolutely not true. There's lots of things that go on in there that help people with things that are not specifically Glowforge related. They might be design related.
Yeah. The thing that scares me is if you've ever been in any of the other laser groups, they hate Glowforge people. And so mixing those people together will have to it's got to be friendly.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, man, because I will tell you what, I will say this for Michael, and if he doesn't agree, I'll just mute him. I'm kidding. But I will say, these groups, as much as we want the family, I'll speak about mine, and then you guys can decide if you agree with it on yours. At the end of the day, it's not a democracy. In other words, if you're not friendly, you don't get to stay. And,
Right.
you know, we want everybody there, but if you can't be cool and a great member of the community, you don't need to be there. So if you bring that toxicity from somewhere else over here, you can just leave it at the door
Yep.
and then come on in the group. Right. So, I
It's the
think your
reason
groups
we
are great.
started the groups. Like people saying, why would you buy a laser if you don't even know how to create a simple shape in Inkscape? That's the whole reason that I designed the friendliest groups.
Absolutely. And I can't stand when people say that. Yeah.
Well,
I've kicked people out of
Question
Will's
for
group
you,
for that.
Mark.
Sorry.
Yeah, all the time. Oh, hey, you know, the great thing, I think we all have that same vision, is we create the culture that we want within our groups, right?
Yeah.
And when we were at 500, we try to create the same culture when we're at 18,000, 40,000, 50,000.
Yeah.
There's no tolerance, right? It's not a right to be into
No.
our groups, right? It's a privilege, and we choose who we allow into our groups. So don't be afraid to ask questions in any of our three groups. We're going to, even if we've heard the question 100 times, there's going to be people who are going to want to help. I think that's what separates groups from others, right? Is the opportunity to feel safe to ask those questions. So,
Yeah.
but I do have one here for you, Mark, and I think we can both answer this real quick. But
Yes.
are we going to have space at Next Level to use our computer during classes in Dallas?
Yes. You pitching me a softball because you know I know the answer to that one. Yes. So great question, Pat. All of the classes that are program based, like Inkscape and Illustrator and so forth, are going to be in classrooms that have tables or a classroom style where you'll have a place to put down your laptop or your device. So absolutely yes. If it's a class that is based around something like that, definitely. Now, some of the classes that are more conceptual, where that's not necessarily the case, there may not be, but all of the design classes definitely will have tables in front of you for your device. In fact, on that note, I think I know the answer, but Michael, for your class, I assume that if they bring their laptop and have Inkscape on it, that would be super helpful. Do they need to bring anything else, or is that good? Just your laptop and your Inkscape?
no, that's good. That's all they'll need. And we could even walk them through downloading and installing Inkscape at the very beginning or before the class if need be.
Yeah, that's great.
I think as
But
we get a
we
little
would
bit closer, we're going to put for each of the classes, we're going to put suggested things that you should bring, or if you could bring, if it's download the newest version of Inkscape, bring a laptop, if it's another class, and bring a notebook. All of those things, we will put some suggested items to have ready for you so that you don't have to deal with downloading Inkscape when you get there. We don't know
Yeah.
how the internet's going to be at a hotel. We
It's a
want you to
hotel.
be able to walk in. It's a hotel. We want you to be able to walk in, have all the tools necessary so you can get the maximum time of absorbing the information that Michael's giving you versus
Yes.
waiting for the computer to do all the things.
I'll let you field this one from Kristen. Michael, is Inkscape free?
100% free, ad free, free forever, no plugins that you have to buy, nothing. It's completely free. I think there's a button on there to buy them a coffee if you want to.
Yeah.
But other than that, completely free.
Yep. And Pat, we will. Pat says, "Do it in the Next Level group." We'll email everybody that's on our email list. We'll do it in the group. We'll share information
Website.
several places. Absolutely. Yep. All right. We'll go ahead and tell them one last time, and we will let them go because we're a couple minutes over. But tell them about the event. And then,
Next Level Laser Conference 2025, August 28th through the 30th in Grapevine, Texas, at the Gaylord Texan Resort. And it is a resort. So we're going to have a lot of fun there. We're going to learn a ton. We're going to meet amazing teachers. You're going to meet amazing makers. So I think if you have the opportunity to definitely get tickets now, hotels filling up quickly. It's only 10 minutes away from DFW. We'd love to have all of you there. We have 24 or 25 amazing teachers and speakers who are going to be there. You're not going to be able to take all the classes. So another thing I want to reiterate to everyone is all of the classes and presentations will be recorded. Every single person with the ticket will get all 25 presentations / classes. So you're not missing out anything. So I think it's an amazing value. I guarantee you that we've put our blood, sweat, tears into bringing together the most amazing minds in our community who understand the culture that we're trying to create, but also just a level of fun and making this an event that you're going to not only say I learned something, but you're going to remember for a long time. So
Yeah,
get your
absolutely.
tickets, Next Level Laser events. Come see Michael. Come see what Inkscape can do that's free and can do everything that all the other programs can do. And if you have any other questions, shoot them in the comments. We'll come back to them as we can. If you're watching this later, please hashtag replay. We just love to see how many more people are watching it later, but it also bumps it for us so we can go back and answer any questions you guys
Yeah.
might have. So if you do that, we'd love to have you come join us. It's going to be a blast. Anything you want to add, Mike, Mark, Ems, somewhere here?
And I've been to dozens of conferences, maybe over 100, and this one has some really unique stuff that I've never seen anywhere else. And that was the last one. The next one has even more new stuff that I'm really excited about. And what an incredible job you guys have done on this.
Thank you. And having you there is just an awesome thing. Well, thank you everybody for being here with us. I'll just close with this: 3, 5 path effects. That's all I got to say. Seriously, if you have any questions, join us in any one of these groups. We'll do our best to help you. But until then, we will see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your Tuesday night. You guys stick around. The rest of you, we'll see you in the groups. Have a good night. Thank you.